Good evening, Wednesday, the 26th. Time is 7:29 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. People, I'm going to share a video. That's one thing by listening to the Karen Reed trial for 20 plus days. How come they didn't have a dog expert? I came across this YouTube channel. Let me bring the name of it up. Uh, it's American Standard Dog Training is the YouTube channel. American Standard Dog Training. He's a canine trainer. He didn't watch much of the news about the Karen Reed until another YouTube is was a lawyer. I don't know. I listened to my heart. I listened to God, and somehow I guess God got me to go to this. So I'm gonna share it with you all. Take you some notes, and there he is.
Her own YouTube channel. Highly recommend you check it out. It's called Attorney Melanie Little. She has about 50,000 plus subscribers. She reached out to me via email, I believe, and said, "Hey, Garrett, with your background and experience, would love to have you on our show. She's been following this trial from the beginning. And don't worry, we'll talk about the trial because I'm sure some of you, like me, don't know anything about it, or as I didn't. Just like when she reached out about 4 months ago, and she said, I'd really like to get your opinion on one thing in particular, and that is a photo or a couple of photos of the injuries of a now deceased Boston police officer by the name of John O'Keefe. He was killed under mysterious circumstances back in January, late January of 2022. Again, I haven't been following it. I might have heard some headlines. Normally don't get involved. It's too much hype and hoopla for me. But then when about dog bites, now my ears perk up. And so I went on her show. And we'll show let me talk about my background and my experience, if you will, as a and ultimately we looked at the injury of John O'Keefe's right arm taken posthumously at the medical examiner's office. And what you see in these photos, which again we're going to show shortly, you see a series of lacerations somewhere in the area of like 6 to maybe a half dozen to a dozen vertical striations, lacerations, everywhere from above his elbow all the way down near towards his wrist. And according to the prosecution, according to the state, they're saying that the deceased received these injuries as a result of a car crash, as a result of a vehicle on pedestrian accident or crash. In fact, they're alleging that Karen Reed, the deceased's girlfriend, that Karen Reed, for whatever reason, whether she was drunk or she was enraged, that she put her Lexus SUV into reverse, floored it, and ran into him, launching him some 15 feet off the street and into the
You
snow,
can't do it in
where at some
reverse.
point he hit his head and was discovered some 5 to 6 hours later in the snow around 6:30 in the morning dead or very close to death as a result of not only hypothermia, but a very serious blow to the back of the head. And they're saying the prosecution is hedging all their bets on the fact that Karen is the one that backed into him, and this is how he died. Again, normally I don't get involved in this stuff. It doesn't concern me. This happened up in Boston, nowhere near me. Got too many other things to worry about. But then I found it very weird when we're looking at the injuries. First and foremost, those are not injuries you would see, these vertical striations, these lacerations, not abrasions, right? Now, if you want to get technical, an abrasion is like road rash. An abrasion is like if you were riding your bike and you fell off and the asphalt abraded your skin. Well, that's very different than the injuries this individual sustained. John O'Keefe had lacerations, multiple ones, and mild puncture wounds or minor puncture wounds. Much, much more in line with what I've seen in my background and experience as a police canine handler with dog bites. And not just one dog bite, a series of dog bites, multiple dog bites. And that's what we're going to dive in today and just kind of do a little deeper dive, not only in the case as a whole, but just really look at the evidence that's been presented. And again, it's just very strange for me to do this. Normally we're talking about dog training and how to get your dog to be better behaved and all of that.
You
But
got
I just cannot
1.93 million subscribers.
look away on this one. Once I got involved 4 months ago and gave my recorded testimony, if you will, by no means was I in the trial, but when I went on Melanie Little show and she showed me this photo and I started doing some more research, I now understand what everyone's fascination and involvement in this case
Why didn't
is.
Karen Reed's
Because if you haven't
attorney
been following,
have
it is
somebody
a
like
complete
him
shit
to
show.
testify
It
for
is
him?
unbelievably
I don't
embarrassing
understand that.
what the police departments in that area have done. It's a completely botched investigation, conspiracies galore, and in my humble opinion, I don't think this lady has anything to do with the death of her boyfriend. Again, the Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. It's a complete setup, a huge cover up. And when I share these facts and circumstances with people who aren't familiar with the case, like their jaw drops. And that's what I want to do today, just kind of share it with you as it unraveled to me, because again, wasn't involved, but once I got involved, I just really started looking at it, paying attention to the trial. That trial is going on right now. The defense rested, I think, on Monday, and jury's been in deliberation since all day today. They may have started yesterday. I don't know what's taking that jury so long to come up with a not guilty verdict, but everybody and their mom is expecting it to be not guilty. And now that's only the beginning, because step one is Karen Reed to get a not guilty verdict. Everyone's expecting that. But that's only the beginning, my friends, because once she's considered not guilty, I strongly believe the feds, who have already been all over this case for the last 2 years, are
I
going to
told
step
you
in
people, and he's a
and
police
start dropping the
officer.
hammer on some folks. We are talking about lies. We are talking about horribly botched investigations. We are talking about how would you describe it? We got Spider off camera there. How would you describe it's like nepotism. We've got the lead detective of the case, of the murder case. The lead detective is very long, lifetime long friends with those who we believe actually may have committed the murder, right? And we'll talk about that theory in a minute, but we're talking about a situation where this homicide investigator should have recused himself from this case from the very beginning.
I agree.
The body was found right in front of the home of the lead homicide investigator's basically family friend. And it appears that he's done a great job, or probably not that great of a job, of covering up that family. And again, I don't try to subscribe to conspiracy theories. And you all might be watching this going, Gary, you've gone off the deep end. I don't blame you for thinking that. But if you really look at the facts that have been presented, it's enough to make your head spin. It's like, how did this even go to trial? And so we'll talk about some of those facts. But before we dive in any deeper, we'll talk about these crazy things on my arm. So These are Armin Lagan products. They have been designed and manufactured for probably well over a decade now. But my near and dear friend, Steve Sprouse. Now, Steve Sprouse spent over 30 years in law enforcement, handler, and more importantly, a trainer. And we plan to have Steve on our podcast here soon. By the way, keep an eye out for that podcast. Episodes are dropping this week. We just launched episode 0 just a few days ago. We're going to be pushing those out on our second channel. Great opportunity for us to plug that second channel. Look for it right now. We need to grow that channel. It's under my name, Garrett Wing, and it will be the Garrett Wing Podcast. We'll be plugging shorts and medium form content on the main channel, the one you're watching us on right now. But if you want to see those podcasts, if you want to see those interviews with folks like Steve Sprouse, with folks like Sean McDonough, who's a 35-year DEA veteran, who's very involved in this Karen Read case. My father, a 30-plus year canine veteran, and so many other folks. We've already got those podcasts filmed, already edited, ready to be uploaded for you to watch, sink your teeth into. The only way you're going to watch those, shoot on over to the Garrett Wing podcast, the Garrett Wing channel. Go ahead and hit subscribe. Of course, turn on the notification bells, etc. Now, back to Steve Sprouse. So I've been friends with Steve, or he's been friends with our family for probably going on 20 years. And he designed these products probably going 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. He was involved in an incident as a police canine handler where his dog failed to engage on the street. I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm going to save it for him when he comes on our show and he can talk more about it. But his dog, like many other police dogs, failed to engage on the street. All right. Some of you all are out there thinking police dogs are just born into it and they're perfect from the get-go.
No.
And they perform flawlessly on the street. Couldn't be further from the truth. Just like you sometimes struggle to get your dog maybe to sit or down or go in the crate or go on a place board, we sometimes struggle to get a police dog to do what they've been bred and trained to do. And in this particular instance, Steve was, I believe, by himself, tracking for some type of suspect. That suspect was armed. I don't know if he knew that at the time or not, but the point is, he encountered that suspect. In a very long story short, his dog did not handle business. His dog was unclear what was going on. And we know why, looking back on it, and it happens a lot. We see it a lot with dogs.
PTSD.
We train them on the field in a controlled environment, in an area that they're familiar with, the training field. And the dogs are very environmentally oriented. They say, I know what we're doing on this training field. We're biting the guy in the big, puffy, Stay Puft Marshmallow bite suit, which you can imagine if you've ever seen someone wearing a bite suit. They're huge, right? They're big and puffy, and they don't look like anything else but what they are. And when the dog gets used to targeting that, when you train that over and over again, hundreds, if not thousands of bites in a controlled environment on the field with a guy in a bite suit running away, it creates a very specific picture for the dog. And that very specific picture looks nothing like the picture that they will likely encounter on the street. We're talking daylight, field, no distractions, guy in a Stay Puft Marshmallow suit doing jumping jacks literally and running away and yelling, like come bite me, like a walking billboard. In a backyard, late at night, in a place that the dog's never been before. Adrenaline up, handlers extra jacked, dog stressed, like why is my handler, why is my owner like this? Circumstances are tense. And then they finally come across the guy, and that guy's usually not standing up, usually not running away. These bad guys typically 99 out of 100 times are going to be hiding somewhere in the bushes, under a car, up on the roof of something, up in a tree, you name it, in a garbage can. They're going to be balled up, laying probably on the ground, no Stay Puft Marshmallow suit, sometimes no shirt on. And when the dog sees that, they go, well, I don't know what's going on here. I've never seen this picture picture before, and then in long story short, that's
That's true, people.
exactly what happened with Steve. Dog was in a scenario that it hadn't seen before and did not engage. And as a result of not engaging, it gave the bad guy plenty of time while Steve's trying to get his dog
To attack him.
to pull his head out of his ass and bite the guy. The guy was able to pull a gun out and shoot Steve several times. Now, luckily, Steve survived that encounter and was able to walk away. But he made it his life's mission from that point forward to never let that happen to him or anybody else that he could help. And what he did is he set out on a mission to overcome that very big hurdle in police canine training. That hurdle being transitioning a dog from biting equipment on the training field to biting real human flesh on the street. Now, granted, there are some dogs, maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, that they transition like nothing. They're just kidding. But again, that's only 1 or 2 out of 10. The other 9 or 8 or 9 out of that bunch will very likely struggle and will need that extra training, muzzle work, arm and leg and equipment, hidden sleep. That's where I'm not trying to tell you to buy them. There's not really a great use for them in the civilian world. It sounds like I'm plugging them. It's because it is an amazing product. Amazing. The guy has spent well over 2 decades designing these products, perfecting them, iteration after iteration. And he's really got it down to a science now, so much so, and I'm probably not allowed to say this, let's say it anyways, but some super secret squirrel agencies, shall we say, both nationally and internationally, have reached out to Steve and are big fans of his product. Let's just say that, right? So rest assured, when our boys and girls are deploying overseas with some of those high-speed dogs and some of those high-speed units, it's very likely that they have trained with and continue to train with Steve Sprouse's amazing products. He doesn't just, and I have them off camera there, I'll show you. This is a Gen 2, this is a Gen 3, we got a Gen 1 off camera there, we've got a leg, he has entire full body suits. And long story short, that this product is designed to keep the decoy safe, but encourage the dog to encourage the dog to bite human flesh and understand the picture that's presented. And we'll show some photos later, maybe some videos showing these products in use. But the reason I even bring these up is you get a little backstory on some police canine training, which I always find interesting. But we're going to, in a minute, get a little closer to the camera and show you what real bite wounds look like, not only on photos that we have of actual suspects that have been bitten in custody, but actual, like right in front of you, show you what it looks like when a police dog bites what is anatomically correct, if you will, meaning it has the same density, the same size. These are molds taken off of an actual real human's arm. And so you can see it firsthand what it looks like, the damage that is a result of when a canine dog's teeth, when a canine bites human flesh. And that's what we're trying to discuss today. So you think now's time I can put these up close on camera, kind of see what these wounds look like? Which camera should I go to for that? This guy right here?
Yep.
All right. So let me get a little closer, unless you think I'm perfect here. What do you think?
Yep, you're good there.
All right. So I'm going to try to, this is kind of like a self-healing properties of this kind of rubber synthetic thing. So the wounds, it's not exactly the same as, say, like human flesh, that when it gets cut, it kind of splits open. So I can kind of stretch this open and you'll see, you're not going to see puncture wounds as much as you're going to see. Is this showing up?
Yeah, can you lift it up just a slight bit?
Okay, sure. What you're going to see more of is lacerations, striations, what looks like scratches, what looks like someone took a knife and went like this with it. And what is that? That's the police dog's teeth. I'm trying to open these up a little bit and you should be able to see them more. You can see where literally the dog's teeth went in or attempted to go in. depending upon how strong the dog's bite is. We may talk about that later, how in this case, this wasn't a trained police dog. This wasn't a trained attack dog. This was a dog that we would say was a shallow biter, a dog that bites only with its front teeth. We do see that in the police world a lot. In the police world, we're trying to get our police dogs to bite with a full mouth grip. Most of the power and the ability to bite and hold through a struggle happens in the rear of the dog's jaws. Think of it as scissors. Where do you have the most power with scissors, or any type of equipment that you would use to cut through something, like pliers? The power is not in the tips of the scissors, it's in the back. And it's the same with your dog's jaw. There's a mechanical advantage in the rear of the jaw. So we're always trying to teach our police dogs to bite deep and bite hard and hold on. But we'll see kind of nervy dogs without a lot of experience, maybe not the best training. They want to bite with their front teeth, kind of bite, and you end up getting this scraping motion. Let me show you on this one here. This one has maybe a little less bites in it. But once again, you can see, am I close enough?
I'm going to zoom in.
Okay, he's going to zoom in for us so we can see a little better. You're going to see a lot of scratches, a lot of scrapes. Is that coming in pretty good? Okay, we'll switch over here, and maybe you guys will see a little better. Bear with us live. Let me know when we're there. Okay, I'll back up a little here. How are we looking? All right, how are we looking now? All right, so again, I'm going to kind of open this up so you can see what the wounds would look like. But there are lacerations, right? Striations in this motion. You could call them lacerations, you call them scratches, somewhat puncture wounds, but it's typical, again, when a dog bites, they bite and pull. Or when a police dog bites, it's oftentimes they're biting and holding, and guess who is pulling? The guy behind the leash is pulling his dog. But again, we see dogs do that a lot. It's their natural, it's in their nature to bite something and try to pull it to the ground. And so again, this one has more bites. I mean, look at these cuts here. Are those showing up? Yep. All right, I think I've proved my point. And I'll show you a couple of his other products. This is a leg. This is a brand new version. There's no bites in this one, I don't think. Maybe one. And what a great product too, by the way. If used correctly, these things can take dozens and dozens, if not 100 bites or more. Depends on how you're using the equipment or whatever. Now we're going to switch over to this camera here and show you some of the behind the scenes, some photos, and talk a little bit more about this case. I'll tell you when to turn this on, right? So first thing I'd like to share with you probably is show you where we appeared on Melanie Little Show. And I want to kind of compare a little bit of my testimony, if you will, from 4 months ago with the testimony of the defense's expert, a Dr. Russell, who has seen somewhere over 500 dog bite victims in her 30 or 40 year career as an ER doctor in I forget where, but some pretty busy area where they got a lot of action, a lot of dog bites. She saw police dog bites. She saw civilian dog bites. And is there a big difference between a police dog bite and your typical everyday civilian dog bite? Not really, right? It's the same animal doing the same thing, biting human flesh. The biggest difference you might see is with more of an untrained dog or an actual animal attack. You're usually seeing, once again, with an untrained dog, multiple bites. We specifically train our police dogs to, once again, preferably bite one time and hold. There's a few reasons for that. We can get into that if you like, but one of them being we don't want to have a defendant, a suspect, with 6, 7, 8 different bite wounds on them. That does not look good in the courtroom. That does not look good in the public eye. We want the dog to bite and hold and just handle business, if you will. You hold onto that leg while I put this guy's arm behind his back and handcuff him. What I don't want is while I'm trying to arrest the subject, we got a police dog that's just biting here, biting there, biting him on the ass and biting him on the left arm. And it's going to be a complete shit show. So, but you will see that typically when you're seeing those videos that we post even on this channel, when you see dogs either attacking each other or, God forbid, going after a human, it's a lot of biting, disengaging, because it's an unconfident dog that hasn't been trained to just bite and hold. So a lot of talking there. Let's get into this video. I'll try to find a good spot. It's over 30 minutes long. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, but you can go ahead and switch to it now. Let me know when we're there. All right, we're up. So if you look here, I just want to kind of proof. This is 4 months ago, Attorney Melanie Little's channel where I first got involved in this case. And basically, she's, again, just asked me to talk about the bite. And so let's go ahead and jump in. And you're going to see something interesting. The one thing I want you to zero in on is how I describe on his injuries, how you can even zero in on what part of the dog's teeth, their anatomy of the jaw and the teeth, which teeth caused which injuries. And that's kind of what I'm discussing here. So we'll back up just a little bit. What I'm describing here is when this first came up, I shared this photo with a couple of my canine friends who know nothing about the Karen Read case. Still, I don't think know anything about it. All I did was send them this photo, and I said, "What do you think?" And they go, basically, that's a dog bite, and kind of a crappy one. If you were thinking of this as a police dog bite, it's not an ideal police dog bite. More superficial wounds, again, not bites, and what you would consider to be shallow bites and an unconfident dog, which coincides with, guess what? Because we haven't mentioned this yet. I'm assuming you guys know the case. It is believed that Karen Read, after a night of drink, officers inside, a half dozen or so people in there. And it's possible, it seems likely, that something happened in that home after midnight. Everyone's drunk, a lot of testosterone flowing, and they got into some kind of physical altercation. And during that physical altercation, they literally beat him to death. And during that physical altercation, he received, among many other injuries, these wounds you see on his right arm, which are extremely consistent with dog bites. And that's what we're talking about now. So we're going to contrast or compare my little statement here about dog bites with what ends up
I
becoming.
told you they was dog bites. This guy's an
who
expert.
also says literally
Police
the same thing,
canine
which I found
dog.
so interesting that she and I were both pointing out the same exact wounds and describing how those injuries came about. So let's dive in a little.
You'll have to reiterate what you're saying.
We have no laptop audio. Is there a way to turn that on?
You can either put your earbud up to your microphone or
No, I can unplug it.
yeah, you have to.
That's
yeah,
fine.
They'll lose the visual. Oh, the headphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's listen in. Their thought though was I don't that hear it this here
Uh,
either. was Oh, that's not going to work. How do we lose the audio? Or how do I get it back? Wasn't there a button you pressed over there?
Are you playing it?
It is playing. I can hear it here. Well, I'm not.
Police dog that
paused.
probably should have been washed out.
It should be able
This is not what we want to see on a
All
police
right, let
dog
us know
bite.
if you
We
can
don't
hear
want to
the
see
audio
constant re-engagements,
from the
which
YouTube
is
video
what this
playing in the
looks like.
background.
But this is
Give
what
us
I
a
would
thumbs up or thumbs down.
expect from like that
Any
German
feedback yet?
Shepherd we saw bite that lady, the delivery driver, right? Just
Right.
naturally going in, doing as much damage as possible. Not understanding the mechanics of biting deep and holding. These,
Perfect, thank you.
in my opinion, are bites utilizing
again, a lot of
the front
talking
of
here,
the
but-
mouth. Furthermore,
I'll pause. The big thing that I want to zero in on is long story short, the front teeth of the dog, not the canines, the little baby teeth, is what we call it, super shallow. They kind of well, it's the same. A dog that's not damaging that full mouth bite, and that's what causes these injuries here.
I had seen
And
video,
then I show
could be
you
wrong,
on.
but when
We use this to better explain
About to
that.
stop
Yeah, I'm
sharing
gonna
the
give you.
screen.
I'll give you the full.
Don't mind this. We use this for one of our videos. Not the canine. When you
Much
get a
more
shallow
oversized
bite,
than typical.
that's what it looks like. And I can actually pull
ratio
up
makes
another
sense.
picture of a dog bite that we know is a.
So that's that. That was my testimony, if you will, like 4 months ago. That's when I first got involved, and ever since then, I've really done a deep dive on this case, and it just gets crazier and crazier. The longer it goes on, the more testimonies you hear, the more research you do, is really unbelievable. Can we not share for right now? I'm going to go to something else.
Yeah, I'm on you.
All right, perfect. Let me shoot over now and kind of show you some of these arm and leg products in action. We can shoot back here. Let me know when we're on. All right, so this is us using arm and leg products with police dogs, and you can kind of see what it looks like when a dog bites. This is a great example of a dog not biting with a full mouth. This is a young dog, a little over 12 months old, never had a street bite. We're simulating a scenario that looks like a street bite, right? Encountering someone in a vehicle that's not giving up, that's putting up a fight, and that may look like his real arm, and that's exactly the point. It's not just the use of these tools, as Steve will tell you, anybody else who knows how to use these, it's how you present it. It's the picture. As with everything in dog training, it's what picture are you presenting to the dog? And in this case, when done properly, the dog, and even sometimes the handler, doesn't really know what's the real arm and what's the fake arm. And so we get the dogs, encourage them to go ahead and bite and engage. And in this case, kind of a shallow bite on one of these products. And we'll keep rolling. There might be some other photos. This is a great example of how that leg could be used, again, making it as realistic as possible, making it safe for the decoy, using the fence to kind of keep the decoy safe. And the only thing that is kind of presented, or the closest thing, is, guess what? The bad guy's leg. Well, it's not really his leg. It's a fake leg. You get the idea. This is just a frame, freeze frame, if you will, of a dog biting an arm. This is another. Now, this is a much more experienced dog, as you can see, getting that deep, full mouth bite. That's actually a very difficult bite for these dogs to do on this particular piece of equipment. This is considered the strong arm sleeve. This was actually a mold taken off of a bodybuilder's arm. So it's oversized. The reason it's oversized, this is one of the ones I was wearing earlier, is because it needed to be large enough that we could hollow out the inside and get someone with skinny arms like me inside of that piece of equipment. And so you can see here this very big, very powerful, probably over 100-pound German Shepherd, biting pretty much as deep as he can and not letting go. So a great police dog there. Here's a little bit more of a shallow bite. Decoy doing a great job putting on a show, as you can see there. And it's just a different variation of this tool. You seeing all this over there? Perfect. Little blood that's coming from the dog's mouth. Sometimes they bite their own tongue, or their gums bleed a little bit from doing bite work. It doesn't hurt them at all. Let's keep going. All right, now, this little graphic, we may get a little demonetization for this. Police dog bite. And you can see the ripping and the tearing. This is a lot deeper. This is a much more serious bite from a much more serious dog. Let's keep going. Another very serious bite from a police dog. Another one. All right, here's one. Now, this is more of what you would see from a police dog bite when it's just a straight bite and hold. You'll see these straight up puncture wounds and a little bit of laceration. Sometimes this is caused by the rear teeth. But what you're not seeing here is a lot of the lacerations, because this is a dog biting deep, biting hard, not really letting go, not a lot of thrashing, not a lot of pulling, just like an alligator, just biting and holding. Now, mind you, where we get very involved or I get very experienced with this is as a police canine handler, as a supervisor, one of my jobs was to write umpteen many police bite reports and describe in the greatest of detail every single bite, wound, and mark. Not just, oh, he was bit on the arm. We would get as specific as the subject received, in this case, approximately 6 puncture wounds, along with 2 lacerations as a result of what appears to be 2 or 3 separate bites, or the dog readjusting on the bite. And really, we had to explain every single injury, how the defendant sustained it. If it was more than 1 bite, we had to basically justify why it was that the dog maybe re-engaged. It could be that the dog, maybe the dog had an initial bite. The guy was with some baggy clothes and was ripping away. The dog had to readjust the bite, or maybe the guy was punching the dog in the face, which once again might cause the dog to loosen its grip, re-engage somewhere else. Here's some more. It's hard to see. Here's a lot of blood. And that's pretty much it. So again, for purposes, we can kill this. We're not trying to get demonetized and show you, all kinds of gruesome stuff. Maybe should give you a little warning in case you're easily, squeamish. But this is the behind the scenes. This is what happens when you're in the law enforcement canine community. You get very proficient, if you will, or very experienced at looking at dog bites, not just from your own dog or guys from your unit, but also other units and handlers that you work with, because we're constantly, for right or for wrong, we're constantly kind of comparing our dog, the bite, because there's a lot to be said, if you will. You really study these bites, not for just purposes of documenting them. You study these bites because the bite tells a story. It tells us a lot about the dog's training and abilities. Was it a shallow bite? Was it multiple bites? Was it a beautiful bite and hold? What we're really looking for, again, in that law enforcement community, or we're looking for kind of minimal damage, right? I mean, it is cool, and we sometimes high-five each other when a pedophile, some rapist, child predator, or murder suspect gets their ass handed to them, and the dog bite is so significant that they get an entire chunk of their arm or leg goes missing. It seems a little extreme. It seems a little like, wow, how dare you? But when you're in the trenches and you're fighting for your life sometimes, and you have these murder suspects that are out on a rampage just killing people, you maybe get a little jaded. And just being honest with you, you kind of secretly or behind closed doors kind of like, my dog messed that guy up, or you might show a picture to your friend like, look at this, look what happened to this guy, and it's like, wow, man, what a bite, wow, you really messed that guy up.
They do
of course,
do
there's
it.
always a backstory to it, like, yeah, this guy deserved it because he just did a drive-by shooting where he shot and killed an innocent girl in the head, and she's now dead. And so I have no remorse. I'm just being honest with you. If it hurts your feelings, you're on the wrong channel. I don't have remorse when we have a suspect that just did a drive-by shooting with an AK-47 and shot some young innocent girl in the head and she's dead. If we end up a couple hours later finding him in the backyard and one of our police dogs goes to handle business because he's putting up a fight, he's refusing to give up, he may still be armed with a gun, he's maybe shot at the police, right? What if we have one of those, right? A suspect that actively shooting at the police or recently shot at the police or is a cop killer on the run. When the opportunity presents itself, let me just be honest with you, and we have a selection available to us. We have every dog on deck. We have a good feeling as to where the suspect's hiding. Hey, Chopper says he's on FLIR and he's in this backyard. What team are we going to send in? What team would you send in? On deck, you might have a rookie handler with a rookie dog that has no street bites. Great dog on all accounts, has not had a street bite. And as you've been paying attention, you may, again, remember, a lot of times these dogs do not engage on their first encounter. Or their second or the third or the fourth or their fifth. It could take a while before this dog, the switch is flipped and they figure it out and they understand that they can bite human flesh. And even when they do, oftentimes those initial bites are very shallow, very weak, minimal damage, superficial. So there you are. You're the supervisor of the canine unit. You got a suspect hiding in a backyard. You know he's there. He's not giving up. And you got to pick your dream team to go in there and handle business. You got to pick your dream team that's going to go in there and catch this guy and hopefully make it out in one piece and not get shot and killed or something like that. So do you send in your weakest dog?
No,
Do you send in your newest dog?
the best dog.
Or do you send in the dog that's proven itself, has dozens and dozens of street bites, a veteran handler that's on a second or third dog, and you send in the hardest, toughest, meanest, baddest dog you have? You tell me what dog you'd be sending into that backyard. I know what I'd be sending in. And if that dog goes in and does what it's supposed to do, yes, we are high-fiving each other when that 165-pound subject weighs maybe a pound or two less after the bite's over. You say, what the hell are you talking about, Garrett? Well, sometimes depending upon where you're bit, you come out of that bite with a little less than when you went in, right? These dogs will seriously bite and thrash and rip and pull, and entire pieces of arm or leg sometimes go missing. And it sounds gross. It's just the truth, folks. Just what it is. And if that's the case, oh well, sue me, I guess. So let's now get into the photos here, if I may. Don't show it just yet. I'm going to pull it up. And I think I've kind of given you a good backstory. Now I'm going to actually show you his injuries. Let me pull this up, and then you can switch over when it's time.
I'm putting a view on the screen.
Perfect. I'm ready to go.
All right, you're on.
All right. So there's not great photos out there on the internet, right? This is all just what people can get leaked out. But this is the actual photograph of the injuries of the deceased, Mr. John O'Keefe. And what the prosecution would have you believe is that somehow he sustained these injuries by being struck by a vehicle. No, I've seen just as many people hit by cars as I have seen bit by a dog. When you get hit by a car, especially when it's enough force to kill you, you are mangled. You have broken bones. Your hip is out of place.
That's true.
Your legs are not facing the same way they're supposed to be facing. You're trying to figure out which is forward, which is backwards. Like, people really get mangled when they get hit by a car. You get, in this case, he was launched over 15 feet. For that to happen, he had to have been hit pretty hard. Well, where did the cuts come from? And what the prosecution would have you believe these cuts came from a broken taillight. No, these are dog bites. These are dog bites.
I'm not even an
These are
expert, and I
canines.
told you
You can
that.
even see where the bite may have started at the top here, and as the dog's mouth is clamping down, or John is pulling his arms away, that bite's coming down and getting deeper, right? That's where it gets a little wider. You could also argue that the bite started here, and as he pulled his arm away, it got more shallow. Either way, this is very indicative of a inexperienced dog, as this dog was. The dog that they owned is a dog named Chloe, a female German Shepherd, who they had to rehome twice after this whole ordeal. No one can find the dog. Nobody knows where the dog went. And they rehomed it supposedly because what? It ended up biting someone. It got into a dog fight with another dog. They went to break it up, and the dog bit the human. We don't know the details because we can't get those details, but that dog is nowhere to be found. Very convenient.
They
But
put the
this is a
dog
large,
down. They got rid of the
German Shepherds go 75, 80, 90 plus pounds. This looks a lot like a large dog bite. And you can see that now these look a lot more like punctures, where maybe the dog got a little bit of a better bite, a little deeper of a bite. And then these, I really like to zone in on. These are those front teeth. You can even see where maybe it's like a canine here and the front teeth there. Very, very shallow, almost like an abrasion. This is like a no-brainer. This is a dog bite all day. I don't even know how we're arguing that. And then now I think it'll be time to, if you pause here, I'm going to pull up the expert that they had come on and actually provide her testimony in front of the judge. She was on twice. First in front of the judge to see if they would even admit her as an expert. And then she was admitted as an expert, and several days later testified in front of the jury and gave her testimony. What you're about to see here is when she testified with the jury not present, and they were really diving in deep and talking about her experience. And let's just say she's overqualified. By the way, some of you might be saying, oh, this lady was paid for by the defense. She was bribed by the defense to say what she's about to say. That's where it gets real interesting, folks. Dr. Russell, along with many of the other expert defense witnesses, were not paid nor found by the defense. They were located, found, hired, and asked to do their expert research by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who's been overseeing all. It's never good when the feds get involved. Feds do not typically get involved in local cases, local murder cases.
That's true.
Unless the feds believe to be serious amount of corruption going on at the highest levels.
I told
That's
you
what
all
things
that.
are very interesting, that the feds went out of their way to spend their time and money locating these witnesses, and they're the ones that reached out to this witness and had her provide her expert opinion. And then the defense was made aware of that, and then for sure they reached out and said, well, the feds already paid for you, we're going to take advantage of this. And good, man, more power to them. That's a free expert witness. So without further ado, let's hear what Dr. Russell had to say.
All the way around.
Let me know if you can hear anything.
The top and bottom jaw could have situated itself on this portion that we're seeing.
So this is the defense attorney,
posterior part of the arm.
Alan Jackson, I believe. His name is. Does a fantastic
and
job.
in this case, the animal did
Again, let
not
us
get
know
a
if you can
good
hear this.
enough contact.
Objection. Move to strike.
So I'm going to strike that, ask a different question.
How we looking?
That judge is trying to cover it up too.
Contact wounds where the
How we looking on
animal,
views?
a dog, for instance, gets a very solid purchase on the leg. Arm,
And here she's
part of
going
the
to get
body.
in and talk about
Yes,
those bite wounds.
Is that this or is this something else?
something else.
Describe that.
Again, this lady has some over 500
Well,
dog bites she's seen.
An animal,
I got to pause here. She literally wrote 2 research papers or articles peer reviewed on police dog bites, right? How to treat them, how to classify, whatever it is that the ER doctors are doing. But basically, literally wrote the paper on how to treat and diagnose police dog bites. Like, who else do you want on stand?
inflicts
All right, great.
injuries. The type of injury depends in part, on the actual type of contact and how much force is applied by that animal. In addition to any relative movement between the animal.
I lost the audio.
Okay, that's because I plugged in. So that's fine. But you get the basic gist.
Many of
Objection.
She goes on the record stating that unequivocally the bite wounds that you see here are caused by teeth and possibly scratch marks from the claws and teeth of a large animal, more specifically a canine, Canis familiaris. And again, you're like, well, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Let me maybe rewind and kind of give you an overarching view of this case for those who aren't familiar. There's 2 stories to follow. The first story that the prosecution is hedging their bets on is that Karen Reed and her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, this is not debated. I'm going to tell you at what point things get debatable. It's January 28th, 2022, around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Karen and John meet up with some friends at a bar. They go to one restaurant and maybe another bar or restaurant down the road. It's literally snowing outside. There's a blizzard coming in. So like down in South Florida, we have hurricane parties. They have like blizzard parties, I guess. So they're drinking at these two bars, getting pretty well lit, and then they come up with this idea that, hey, let's go to back to one of these folks' homes where they were having a party for their kid that was like turning 18 or graduating or something. I don't remember the details there, but they're like, hey, the bars are closing down. Why don't we all get together, drive on over to my house, and let's continue the party? And so all of this is captured on video. You do see Karen and her boyfriend at the bar. From all accounts, they're getting along splendidly. They're even kind of hugging and kissing on each other. Everyone at the bar states that they saw nothing weird going on, that everybody seemed to be getting along wonderfully. And so everybody gets in their cars and leaves to go to the home of, and bear with me because there's so many people involved here, but I'm going to look up the cast of characters in the Karen Read trial so that I can make sure we're staying the names correct. So I believe the home they're going to is the home of Brian Albert. So Brian Albert is like a 20 to 30 year veteran of the Boston Police Department. He works with John O'Keefe, but they're not in the same unit, but they know each other. And from all accounts, Brian is like a cop's cop, super tough. He's the supervisor of their felony apprehension team, which is a very high speed unit, and just a real tough cop that you don't want to, be on the wrong side of. So I'll go back to Brian's house, and
that was McAllister.
they track, Karen's phone. They track through the Waze app. All of this is discovered later, but it is very clear that Karen and John did pull up in Karen's vehicle. She's driving it, a black Lexus SUV. They pull up around 12:15, maybe 12:30 in the morning, and Karen does stop the car in front of the home. John does get out of the car, and that's where the two stories differ. The prosecution will have you believe that at some point after getting out of the car, something happened, whether there was a fight, there was an argument, or Karen was just lit, wasted drunk. She somehow reversed into him at a pretty high speed, 20 to 30 plus miles an hour, hitting him with the rear passenger side of her Lexus SUV, causing these scratches on his arm, causing him to fly some 15 feet in the air, landing off the road in the front yard of Brian Albert's home. Again, major laceration, blunt force trauma to the back of his head. This is weird. He had bruising to his hands, like defensive wounds, and some cuts and bruises and black eyes. Not really consistent with being hit by a car. But either way,
I told you
supposedly
all
she hits
that
him around
too.
12:15, 12:30 in the morning, ends up driving away. Nobody in the house. Now, who else is in the house? You've got all of their kids. You've got the brother-in-law, the sister-in-law. You got Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, Nicole Albert. Everybody's there, including the ATF agent who was supposedly, not supposedly, they got the text records, starting to have an affair with Karen Read, meaning they already kissed once, and this is all in the last 2 to 3, 4 weeks before the murder happens. Yes, I know she's an evil woman for, flirting with this guy via text messages. I don't condone that or anything like that, but there are conversations, text back and forth between Karen and this gentleman, the ATF agent. I got to find his name so that we're all following along. Some of you are probably screaming like, "Oh, I know what that guy's name is." Posted there, so we're all watching the same thing. And there's Brian Higgins. So he had the romantic connection with Read. So Brian Higgins is a ATF veteran, still on the job.
Not for
He's in the
much
home. The point is,
longer.
there's a few adult males in that home. Everyone's drunk, probably on testosterone replacement therapy. They're all, big, muscular guys. And the second part of the story is, again, dependent upon which one you follow. Story one is she hits him with the car, runs him over, leaves, comes back later at 6:30 in the morning. When she comes back, because she's been looking for him, she drives back to the house because he's not made it home. They were living together, right, at John O'Keefe's home where his children were. And when she comes back at 6:30 in the morning, She discovers his body lifeless in the front yard. And she's freaked out. She's still drunk or / hungover. It's dark out. She's had a traumatic night, and she supposedly utters these words, something to the effect of, I hit him. I can't believe I hit him with my car. Something to that effect. Now, that's not recorded. That's bit of damage that is there, which is just a broken tail light. They don't find out till much later happened when around 5:30 in the morning, when she leaves her, again, miles and miles away from the murder scene. You see it on camera. She backs in, and that's where she cracked her tail light. Well, backing in at like 1 mile an hour and cracking your tail light is very different than reversing at 20 or 30 miles an hour and blasting someone so hard that you kill them and they launch into the yard. If you've ever seen a vehicle that's hit like a deer on the road, it is significant, the damage that happens to your car, right? It's not like the cars are unscathed and the body's mangled. You can tell what vehicle and where on that vehicle hit a pedestrian enough to kill them. The only exception to that would maybe be like an 80 or 90-year-old person that barely gets bumped with a car at the intersection where they're crossing, and that person falls down and hits their head and dies. That's a totally different story. But we're talking about someone getting launched in the air by a vehicle. That's going to leave dents all over that car. It's going to be a huge impression. You're going to see exactly where that person got hit. You're going to have broken bones. None of this exists. So here's what I believe to be the real story, or closer to it. Again, having done my research, following along, watching all of this testimony, watching it again, because once you get sucked in, man, you can't turn the stuff off. You can't look away, right? It appears that, yes, again, we all agree, she brought him to the party. She pulled up. She parked the car. He gets out. He goes in the house, right? They have his watch and his phone show him driving to the scene and then taking some 36 steps. It doesn't say exactly which 36 steps where he went, but he did walk, and then it also shows him having either gone up or gone down several flights of stairs. Well, the home of Brian Albert is a 2-story home with a basement. So guess what? 3 flights of stairs. We don't know what happened, but at some point around 12:30 a.m. or after, some type of physical altercation ensues in that house. And at this point is where I believe the dog, Chloe, attacked him at some point during the fight. I don't know if they beat him with hands and fists. He was hit with a baseball bat. He fell down and cracked his head on the concrete floor. There was supposedly a weight room down in the basement, and so there's weights. He could have got hit with one of the heavy weight. We don't know what happened, but we believe something happened in that home, and then it's been a big cover up ever since. Now, after he's knocked unconscious, bleeding, they beat his ass. The dog's bitten him. By the way, if we can go back to that photo, I don't know if we still have it up. That's not one bite mark. That is multiple bite marks. Can we show this again? That's the other thing that makes this a little twisted. When you see bite marks like this, this is not one bite. This is at least one bite, another bite, if not 2 more, and at least 1 more. We're talking 4 or 5 or more bites. That means this struggle happened well over a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and this dog was allowed to bite and re-target this guy on the arm multiple times. So it's a little twisted when you think about it, how this went down. And you might ask, well, what caused the dog to do that? You can pull this off now. What caused a dog like that to get engaged with a fight? Well, I don't know if you've ever had a dog at home or maybe seen videos of this or seen it at a friend's house where maybe you're playing around, you're roughhousing, you're wrestling on the floor. And your own pet
I've
dog
been
that
through it.
wants
I
to
know.
harm a fly gets super jacked up and gets involved and starts either play biting or almost real biting you on the arm, on the leg, in the clothing, trying to break up the fight. Actually, that's exactly what happened here. This dog already showed a propensity towards biting people, and now here we are in a full-on brawl. And again, whether this dog had training or not, I don't know, but I can see the dog getting super turned on by this. They recognize the fight. They see their family members involved in a fight, members of their own pack. And so the dog jumped in, as dogs do, to defend their pack, assert dominance, if you will, and start biting whoever and whatever is on the bottom of the pile. By the way, that's usually how it goes down, is the dog will target whoever or whatever is at the bottom of the pile. And so in this case, I can imagine John is getting held down. He's getting choked out. He's getting pummeled. He's trying to defend himself if he's not already unconscious. And this dog's coming in and biting and biting and biting and biting and biting. Either way, what we believe ended up happening, and I say we, I mean, there's many, many, many other people out there who've been following this case a lot longer than I, who strongly believe that he was beaten to death in that basement or close to death, that then they didn't know what to do with him. They carried his body outside, dropped him in the front of the house, where he ends up dying several hours later from the loss of blood, the brain injury, or the head injury, and the hypothermia, because it was like 18 degrees out that night. And so over the course of several hours, being exposed to the elements and having suffered those injuries, he dies. Now, why would they dump him there? Well, I don't know what you're going to do with the body at, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Everybody's drunk. What are you going to do? Can't have all the neighbors out watching you just load a body up into a car. And so some people believe they dumped the body there because I guess it's fairly common up in the Northeast where snow plows sometimes run people over. So the thought is they maybe dumped the body there to make it look like a snow plow, maybe ran him over and kind of pushed him off to the side of the road. It makes sense. Maybe they didn't know he was going to die. Maybe they just thought he was unconscious, and they put him out in the cold. He'll basically wake up. He'll come to, and he'll walk home, or he'll walk it off. There's so many things that went wrong, and we'll kind of cover them now, and you can put your own words to them. One of the things that stands out, probably biggest to me, is one of the women that was there the night of the murder, who was in the party. Let me make sure I get her name right. She's a special one, let me tell you. I want to say it's McCabe. It's yep. Jennifer McCabe. She's the sister-in-law of the owner of the home. Jennifer McCabe, they when the FBI gets involved, they end up seizing her phone, and they do cell phone dumps on everybody involved. But mind you, the FBI didn't get involved until months and months later, months and months after this botched investigation, which many are claiming is like an inside job where the lead investigator was covering for this home of Brian Albert. Because of their relationship, the lead investigator, just to show you how close they were, the lead homicide investigator who was handling this case, Brian Albert's, I believe, son or one of their sons was actually the ring bearer at this guy's wedding from like 10 years earlier, meaning their family was in his wedding party. Like, you don't get much closer than that. And this was the guy that was heading the investigation. They never went in the home. They never went down in the basement. They never did a search warrant. They never pulled evidence from there. They didn't do anything. They just completely covered everything up and just handled this as a traffic homicide. And things get weirder. But going back to this Jennifer McCabe lady, she, at around 2:30 in the morning, went on her phone and typed in this famous words, "Haas long to die in the cold." And that's not me mispronouncing it. It's how long to die in the cold, but she's probably so drunk or so stressed, she mistyped it. HOS, Haas long to die in the cold at 2:30 in the morning. Then very quickly after that, deleted that search record. So it wasn't available on her phone. But when they dumped her phone, they dumped the cell phone record. These, amazing phone experts that do what they do and get paid a lot of money were able to do a research and find that deleted search. That's what the FBI calls a clue. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is weird. Why would you be looking that up at 2:30 in the morning unless you were there and you saw them drag this guy's body out in the cold and leave him there? Then it gets even weirder because you got Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, the ATF agent, the owner of the house, who's a police sergeant. They end up calling each other around 2-something in the morning. I don't know what. Check on each other, get their story straight. Who knows what? But when they're on the stand in the trial under oath, they're asked individually but separately when they're up. Why did you make that phone call, Brian Higgins? Why'd you make that phone call to Brian Albert?
That's true.
You know what he says? Oh, it was a butt dial. I never called him. Like, what? What? Your cell phone record says
Them
you called. No,
smartphones, you cannot butt
It was a butt
dial.
dial. What do you mean it's a butt dial? Then it shows that call went through. It was answered. They don't know what conversation took place. It was like a 7-second phone call. Then the phone.
These Android phones, when you're not using them,
and then
your
about
screen
30
goes
seconds or a minute
blank.
later,
You can't butt
Brian
dial.
Albert, the owner of the house, calls Brian Higgins for another 20 or 30-second phone call. When they had Brian Albert on the stand and said, "Hey, so you received this phone call?" "No, I never received the phone call. I was making love to my wife at 2:30 in the morning." Like, were you? "So you didn't get that phone call?" "No, I never got that phone call. I never spoke to him." Okay, I don't know why you're lying about that, but why is
Perjury.
it that your phone called him back? Guess what his answer is? "Oh, while I was bumping uglies with my wife," he didn't use that. I'm using those words. "While he's making love to his wife, supposedly," they've only been married like 30 years. Kind of hard to believe that's what they're doing at 2:30 in the morning. But hey, maybe while that's going on, somehow his phone basically butt dials Brian Higgins back. In other words, they're covering up the fact that they even spoke to each other the night of the murder. No. They're completely distancing themselves from the fact that they spoke to each other. They're saying both of their phones just magically called each other and that magically had a 20 or 30-second phone call, but nobody spoke to anybody about anything. Then it gets even weirder. This Jennifer McCabe girl ends up calling the owner of the house, Brian Albert, multiple times that morning. Multiple conversations are had. That's all recorded. You can see the phone calls going in and out on the call logs. Again, all from a phone dump. And then when asked about it, she says, "No, I never made those phone calls. No, I never spoke to him." So they're, "Well, what are these calls?" By the way, those calls were all deleted out of her phone. Why would you do that unless you were covering something up? Why would you delete that stuff? Now, just to show you how, what's the word I'm looking for? I've been struggling with this all day. When we bring up the main homicide investigator, Michael Proctor, I think his name is, he gets called on the stand and the defense destroys this guy. This, once again, Michael Proctor is the lead homicide investigator who has very tight relations with the entire Albert and McCabe family, meaning the people who were in the home at the night of the murder, super tight with them, lifelong friends. Again, one of their kids was the ring bearer at his own wedding. Talk about when this comes up, when real life, when this happens and you show up as a homicide investigator and you're that closely tied with
Conflict
witnesses,
of
the
interest.
victim, or potentially, in this case, the suspects of it, you must recuse yourself from the case. It's a conflict of interest. That's what I'm looking for. Huge conflict of interest. And yet somehow why did he stay on the case? Well, perfect opportunity if you're the lead investigator to help your friends cover up a murder case. I mean, it sounds crazy. Even hearing myself, could this really be true? Could this really be what happened? And it's like, remember though, truth is always stranger than fiction. So now they get this guy on the stand. I'm going to try to share this with you because you can't believe this stuff. You can go ahead and share the screen. This is the lead homicide investigator from the Massachusetts State Police. The man in charge of gathering the evidence, which he gathers and proves in his mind, Karen Reed ran this guy over. They end up doing a phone dump on his phone. Very strange. Am I still on camera? Good. Yeah, I want to talk about this real quick. It is very odd, very abnormal, never happens that when you're the lead investigator of a murder trial, that your phone and your phone records and all of your text messages and phone calls are dumped, meaning your phone is seized. They do a search warrant on your phone. That doesn't happen. It happened in this case because the feds know something's up. Feds don't do that lightly. They're just dumping your phone for no reason. And why? This guy's not a suspect. Well, not yet anyways. He's not a witness to the murder. He's the lead homicide investigator. Why would they be dumping his phone? And what, more importantly, did they find on it? I'm going to let you hear it for the first. You get to hear it here. You tell me if this is not a biased individual with a huge conflict of interest. You can hear his own words as he reads the text messages they found on his phone. Once again, lead investigator investigating the case of a murder of a police officer, and this is how he conducts himself. Let's go ahead and watch this because you ain't gonna believe the things.
Just him or you and him?
Me and him. Sorry, having a little technical issue here.
She's got a
Once
leaky
again, this is
balloon
the
knot.
defense attorney,
Trooper Proctor, explain
and
to
they're
the
asking
jurors
about text messages
what
off
a
of his phone.
balloon knot is.
I gotta pull up the caption so I can see what's being said.
Your essentially, I guess
I
your
got you. Thank you.
rectum area.
Your anus.
Let me back this up.
Yes.
Let me back this
That's
up
what you're referring
so you can
to.
understand what's happening.
A person by the name of Doc writes,
February 2nd,
Is
this
that
is like
chick a
2 days
smoke?
after the murder.
correct?
Correct.
Who's the chick?
Miss Reed.
And you write E-H, right?
Yes.
And then you write nutbag, as Chief would say, correct?
Correct.
Who's Chief?
A friend of mine.
And then you write what?
She's got a leaky balloon knot.
Trooper Proctor, explain to the jurors what a balloon knot is.
Your essentially, I guess your rectum area.
Your anus?
Yes.
That's what you were referring to about Miss Reed?
Yes.
And you were making fun of her because you believed at that time that it leaked? That's how you were treating Miss Reed?
So we'll pause there and come back. What we're seeing there is just around 2 days after the murder, this guy's supposed to be heading up a full-on investigation, trying to get to the bottom of the matter. And him and his friends and guys he works with, and supposedly other people's staff and supervisors in his homicide unit or whatever, are cracking jokes about Karen Reed, about whether he finds her attractive or not, whether he would sleep with her or not, and then is talking about how I guess she is suffering from medical issue where she, in his words, had a quote leaky balloon knot. It's pretty disgusting, and it just goes to show you, like, he was not an unbiased investigator. They even asked him later, like, so you mean to tell me, like, you investigated this without any bias? I don't know how he was able to say this, to the jurors and say, oh yeah, 100%. I had no bias in this case. Get out of here. Get out of here. This just goes on and on and on with all of the holes in the testimony of the prosecution's witnesses, people who were in that home, everyone highly, highly defensive. Everyone, you can just tell, man, there's some dirtiness going on. Now, to close this out, because we're kind of getting close on time, what I kind of hope to see happen from this is just shed more light on it, make you all aware of the craziness that can happen. Again, this is not to talk bad about law enforcement. That is my background. That is really like my life, my family's life and career. We've committed combined, I think, between myself, my father, my mother, and my stepmother, not even including my stepfather, we're looking at 30, 20, around 80, 90, almost 100 years between ourselves that we dedicated to law enforcement. I remember doing the math before, like 98 years or something like that. I don't like talking about dirty cops. I don't like pointing out, where cops are doing something wrong or corruption. I try to turn a blind eye to it. It's like I'm not involved in that. I want to highlight the good things that police officers are doing, which 99.999% of the time, that's exactly what we are doing. But like with anything, if you call a plumber, not every plumber is going to be the best plumber. Like with dog training, we talk about that all the time. Just because you hire a dog trainer, there's no guarantee you're going to get good dog training. It's like with anything, the Pareto principle. 80% are going to be okay, 10% are going to be amazing at what they do, and then about 10% are going to be horrible, or whatever the ratio is. And I think you're going to see that in law enforcement as within anything else. Same with dogs themselves, right? If you gave me 10 dogs, 1 or 2 are going to be superstars. 8 of them, 6, 7, 8 of them are going to be pretty good. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are going to be not the best. And that's that Pareto principle that happens across all species, everything. And we're seeing that here in law enforcement. And this stinks. This stinks bad. And what I'm hoping to see, it should have happened today. I don't know why it didn't happen today, but maybe we'll hear good news tomorrow. I'm expecting to hear that Karen Read is 100% innocent, not guilty. I don't know how any juror on the planet would ever convict her based on the evidence that was presented and all the holes in it. And again, still struggling for that word, but just everything that's been presented and how this has been a botched investigation from the beginning. We're not even getting into all of the details, like planted evidence. And normally when I hear that evidence was planted, I'm like, get out of here, man. This is just sensationalism. This is a reporter trying to drum up some BS. In this case, I actually think evidence was planted. I really do. Something is off here. Something's very off. It stinks to high heaven. And so not only am I expecting to see a not guilty verdict, we're all expecting, we're just waiting for it. Should have happened today. Probably it'll happen tomorrow. I can't see this taking any longer. What they're waiting for, I have no idea. But that's just step one. When she's not guilty, now what's next? What's next is I now imagine the full force of the FBI and all the investigators have been looking at this for the last 2 years are going to now turn their attention towards, because let's just say, if she's not guilty and she didn't kill John, well, then who did? And that's the question. And there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered, and it's only going to take one of these people to flip and to fold and to turn state's evidence, put the pressure of the feds on them, and we'll finally get the truth as to what happened. I hope, for John O'Keefe, for his family. It's a horrible, horrible incident that happened. And it's just compounded by the fact that his girlfriend got drugged through the mud on this one, been dealing with this for 2 years. So justice for Karen Read, justice for John O'Keefe, and really interested to see how this all plays out in the coming weeks and months, as even though the trial's over, I think the investigation has just begun. And I'm assuming and I'm hoping Karen Read sues the shit out of those police departments for a botched trial, for horrible evidence collection, for a complete conspiracy. I don't know if she's going to be able to. I don't know if the law allows for that, but you might be looking at Boston's Next Millionaire. I see Karen Read making a lot of money off of this one. Some small consolation for the drama that she's been through. Once again, I know this was a little off topic, a little different than something we normally do. We are trying to venture out. I can't just talk about dog training. In my background in law enforcement, things like this come up and literally bite me in the arm and take a hold of me and say, like, hey, you should pay attention to this. I can't, once you look at this, once you see behind the scenes, once you've looked under the skirt, so to speak, you can't look away. You can't. This is the craziest thing. If you haven't been following, you better be following, because this is some wild stuff. And we're going to probably talk a little bit more about it, because I find it super interesting. It's very present. It's very happening right now. And again, hopefully this has some type of happy end.
People, you heard it straight from a dog expert. You know, I hate to say it. You heard it from a dog expert. I've told you from the beginning when I saw those pictures, they was dog bites. So I want to thank you all very much for watching this. So thank you for watching. I hope that answers some of your questions. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe bell where you get all notifications. I done a TikTok video earlier about me needing a riding lawnmower. So God bless you all. Thank you for watching. That's all I'm going to do. My screen's froze up.